Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux here with the Daily Racing Form. This Sunday, July 2nd, out at Monmouth Park. Their fifth race is the Boiling Springs $100,000 race for 3-year-old fillies, set to go a mile and 70 yards on the main track. We'll look at the field of six. Interesting field. Chad Brown's going to send in Shutoutie, who draws the rail in here, who was third last time out in the Gazelle behind Promise Her America and Gambling Girl. Seduction was second on debut, faced a nice winner who came back to win next time out, but Seduction was able to graduate in her second career start during the championship meet at Gulfstream. And then just some horses on the outside, such as the number 5 Crypto Mama and the 6 Miss New York, both hard-knocking types. Looking at them, they typically, are getting minor checks at best, but they both have talent and are kind of interesting to see them both at Monmouth Park. So we'll start with the horse on the rail for Chad Brown, the number 1, Shittabooty. We'll take a look at her most recent performance in that Grade 3 Gazelle at Aqueduct back on April 8th. Occult was the favorite in here at 9-5, and I mentioned Promise Her America scores a huge upset, which is going to pave her way to go to the Kentucky Oaks. And you can see the Peter Brandt Silks on the outside here, post 6 for this runner. She's really trying to grind it out lately, but Gambling Girl is traveling better at this point in the race, and Promise Her America is still doing her work on the front end and gets that job done. I thought it was an okay performance from this runner. Prior to that, had that sort of win streak intact with 3 back-to-back wins. So yes, she was defeated last time out, but it was the Grade 3 Gazelle. I think she finds herself in a softer spot. And just looking at Chad's numbers at the meet at Monmouth, he's 36% in terms of wins, but he's 19 for 33 in the money. So he continues to add to that resume. And when Sammy Camacho's been in the irons, they've been red hot. So a lot to like about this filly. The number 2 at the Crossroads, this one for Carlos David. You look at her in terms of her trips to the winner's circle, she is 3 for 10. And when she's found herself in the winner's circle, they've been very easy wins. She was able to graduate at Gulfstream Park in her 2-year-old season by over 17 lengths and followed that up with a first level allowance win. And then she was sort of flat. And you saw that she had about, just over 2.5 months in between the cash run and then her next appearance in March. But most recently, she does have that now local run at Monmouth Park at the distance where she was able to take them gate to wire. She won by 7 lengths. It's quite easy. Paco Lopez was aboard, but you can see, we'll talk about in a minute, he ends up taking a different horse in there. So I don't love that angle. And looking at her, I'm really not sure what she faced last time out, but always I think it's a good, thing to see that she had that start at Monmouth and it was a winning one. The number 3, Seduction. This is the one that Paco Lopez is going to climb aboard for the first time, trained by Todd Pletcher. I mentioned was second on debut, but let's look at her maiden score, where she's able to do this pretty easy at Gulfstream Park back in February during the championship meet. Yes, she was 4-5 in here and kind of hitting the top of the stretch here, was in the lead, but she ends up drawing away very easily by 5 lengths. Louis Size had to call upon her and kind of had to work her to get her going. But once she responded, you can see the tail swish, and you can see she's really hitting her best stride late. I thought it was a very good performance. She may just be one of those types that she has to be asked upon a little bit more. And once she figures out what her rider is asking from her, she responded. So she has been on the shelf, but she's been training at Monmouth Park, has a slew of works. Todd, in terms of his runners, a limited number of starters, 14, but he is 8 for 14 in the money. So I think this one's got, a huge shot, this filly does, in the Boiling Springs. The number 4, Cairo Sugar, was third last time out, well defeated at Parks at this mile and 70-yard distance. Prior to that, tried the turf. It's been interesting to see the way she's kind of raced since that layoff. Prior to that, she's a little bit more in touch with her races. She was able to win a race at Aqueduct back on February 19th. Then she was third in Beyond the Wire, but I think she's fallen flat in her last 2. She's certainly get back into shape here, making that third start off the form cycle, but I have reservations. She's typically hasn't been able to show in recent times a late punch. She's kind of hung in her races. So she's going to need to show more against this group. The number 5, Crypto Mama. We'll take a look at our final replay for this field. We're going to go back to the Weber City Miss back on April 15th at Laurel. And in terms of her race in here, she was 8-5. She took respect. At the end of the day, she's not going to be able to get to Cats in the Timber, who scores a mile upset at 7-1, was in the clear, but towards the outside. But Crypto Mama is very game. Her resume shows that, but I thought looking at her performance here in the stretch, she never gives up at any point in here. It almost looks like she's going to battle back to get the job done, but she is defeated by half a length. Since then, she raced in the Memories of Silver, which was carted for the turf, moved to the main track over the slop at Aqueduct. And as I said, her resume says it all. She really hasn't missed the board other than that one start so far in her 9-race career. And in terms of trip, I would expect, that she would be close to the pace. She's been that throughout her races. And I think going a mile and 70 yards at Monmouth, just knowing it's the main track at Monmouth and how it's been playing, I think being close to the front early on is certainly not a bad thing. Then finally, the number 6, Miss New York. This one out of the Jorge Delgado barn. I don't know what to make of her. I mean, obviously, you look at her last race, going a mile and a 16th at Monmouth, going 2 turns against stakes competition. She ended up getting the 82 buyer, which is her best, but she was still well defeated. I thought her rally in the stretch, it was minor at best. It wasn't really alluring to me. The winner ended up being much the best, drawing clear by 5.5. And when you go down the page, her most recent win was back at Tampa, where she was a decisive winner, going 7/8 of a mile. I just am unsure what to do with her. They've tried a lot of different things with her as well, and I'm kind of curious as to why they made some of those moves with her. So Miss New York, the barn has been red hot, but when I look at her form, I have a couple of question marks surrounding her. So that is the field of 6 for the Boiling Springs. Go to the horse on the rail, the Chad Brown trainee. I think looking at her races so far in her career, she's been pretty impressive. She only has those 4 starts, 3 of which have been wins. And I even think looking at her race that she suffered a defeat, she raced well enough to handle this field. I am intrigued by the number 5, Crypto Mama. I know when you go back down the page, you can see that these two have faced off before, and she wasn't coming out on the winning end of it. But I do think her last several efforts, they've been very strong. She's consistent, and I think she's been getting better. But that's a big thing if she decides. You can see she was entered for a race at Delaware and this race as well. So if they keep Crypto Mama here, I definitely would use her in the exotics. The number 3, Seduction. We've only seen her twice. We haven't seen her since February, but I thought looking at that replay of her graduation victory, she looked very good in the stretch, and as a horse that going from that 1-turn mile at Gulfstream, kind of excited to see her stretch around 2 turns for the first time. And then finally, the number 6, Miss New York. At her best, I think she could be a factor in here, but as I mentioned, her form is a little bit muddied. So for me, go to Chad Brown here on the rail in the Boiling Springs. Good luck.